You said that July was your biggest month in business.
Yeah.
How long have you been after it at this business? And did you start this? Were you recruited to this? Did you meet the person who started did this all happen at this men's group thing?
Yeah,
as part of that?
So WealthWave is the name of our financial firm that I'm with. It's a
very cool name.
Yeah, we're the How Money Works company. So it's a big thing that we do. I bought one of our books here, so How Money Works. So big thing we do is financial education. And there's a great example. You can flip through that. It's very easy to read.
Stop being a sucker.
Stop being a sucker. Yeah, it's a inside joke. You ever been to a bank?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do they have sitting on the counter?
Yeah.
They usually have lollipops sitting there.
That's right.
Yeah.
When you go through the drive-through when you were little, that's what you'd look forward to with your mom.
What brand were they?
Hell, I have no idea.
They're usually the little ones.
Yeah,
come in a big bag.
I don't know.
Called Dum-Dums.
Dum-Dums.
They're literally they're literally warning you. So banks, and we can talk about this a little bit, but
we will.
The big joke on banks is especially with the way interest rates are and whatnot, banks are going to offer you about 0.3% interest rate, right? It's, based on what we call the rule of 72, simple math for understanding how compound interest works. It's going to take 800 years for your money to double in a bank account, right?
Right.
So versus they're going to give you a credit card and the interest rate on that credit card is 24%. So they're going to give you 0.3, they're going to charge you, 24, right? So it's like, we're just being suckers, right? So that's the whole reason there's a sucker on the front of the book. We're being a bunch of suckers, right? And they're warning us by giving us dum-dums when we show up at at our local bank.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got into our firm. I actually started part-time. So while I was still in engineering, I was running an engineering firm, and I was like, my big reason for getting in is I loved the education. I loved the idea that I could go out and help people and make money doing it. And then I recognized along the way that I could really go out and build something great for myself, my family, and my future with this company. And so I made the decision in September of 2020 that I was going to go full time and I was going to start taking this business full time. So over the next year, and there's a reason. So it was a COVID, yeah. So and there was a good reason for that. I mean, I had worked my butt off for this engineering firm, and I had a director of operations role, running an office in Houston, and
working for the man.
Working for the man, my boss used to come in and be like, "There's my retirement plan," tell that to me.
Really?
I'm like, I was like,
he would say that to you?
Oh yeah. He's
seriously?
Like, oh yeah. He didn't mind mentioning that. For if our office was successful, he could retire happy.
That could be a scene in Fight Club.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah,
seriously.
We're gonna talk about Fight Club though.
The balls on the guy.
Yeah, and I think he was well intentioned. He's like just trying to make some jokes and whatnot. But I'm like, I understood the assignment. It's like you're here to build this office and make it as profitable as possible. And our owners and our shareholders are going to take the majority share of that, and then you're going to get paid a measly salary, and we'll dangle a little carrot out in front of you until you die fat and happy.
Yeah.
And again, that's just business. That's the way most corporations work. But I knew for me, I said that's not going to be what builds the life that I really want. And I didn't feel like I was really helping a whole lot of people. I had my team there that I got to lead our team, and I loved those guys. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm doing a lot of good in society, and that was important to me. And so I started building up our business part-time, just after hours. I'd work 7 to 5 most days, and then I'd come home and from 5 till 9 at night, I'd be doing client appointments and meetings and getting things going. And so in September of 21, when my wife and I, we'd bought a house up here just north of Frisco. And we closed on Friday the 10th, and on Monday the 13th, I went in and put in my 2 weeks notice. I need my W-2 to close. So.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
And so I walked out of engineering 2 weeks later, and it's been almost a year now. I've been full time and really building and tearing it up, and so it's been awesome. A blast.
No doubt.
Been a blast.
Why do you think it is that in our schools and in our universities, kids aren't taught about how money works? They're not taught about how to build credit. They're not taught about how to invest. They're just taught, go get a job. You're going to get 2 weeks a year off.
Yep.
You go down to watercolor and sit on the Gulf and drink some margaritas. Then you're going to buy a house. Maybe you're going to get that for 2.5%, 3%, 4%. So you're going to pay for that for 30 years, which means you're going to pay for that house like 4 or 5 times.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Why is that? Is that intentional in your opinion?
Yeah, I for sure think, what's the incentive what's the incentive for schools to teach kids how to take control of this, how to take control of their money, how to take control of their careers? You know, if you think about it, they're not really incentivized to do that.
Right.
You know, because what happens is, like, if that was the case, you know, if that was the case and we were really teaching more and more kids that, hey, you get to be the dictator of your life, you get to grow, you know, if you grow your mindset, you learn the basic concepts about money, you learn how to build a business, you learn how to employ people, you learn how to go. If you learned how to do that, you'd look back at your schooling and be like, I didn't need most of that.
Don't you think that if they taught you that in grade and high school, you might not even go to college?
Most people wouldn't.
Because
the big universities would look at it and be like, you're crushing our revenue right now because you're pulling all these people away from colleges.
So there's a system.
I for sure think there's a system for it.
Because there's an educational system.
Yep.
We need to educate all of our children, and then they all need to go to college.
You got to think everything's got to be connected, right?
I reckon.
So if the education system, if it doesn't benefit higher ed, right? So if we don't teach this kind of stuff now, then kids are going to go to higher ed thinking I have to have a college degree so that I can, you know, make sure that I can get a good paying job when I get out of school, right? Which means along the way, what are they doing? They're probably taking some student loans, because where are they taking those loans from? Taking them from the government.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to be an engineer or an architect or a
be,
lawyer or a doctor.
Yep. And then from there, it's like, well, who also, you know, who funds a lot of these schools, right? Government funded schools, you know, even like your big public schools have, you know, grants and things like that. So it doesn't really behoove higher ed or the government, you know, for us to go out and teach this kind of stuff. And especially, you know, if you look at big institutions like banks, if you look at banks do not want us to teach this stuff.
Right.
Because what are we going to tell them? Is say, hey, obviously you need to have an emergency fund. You've got to have some money in savings and whatnot. Yep. But outside of that, your banks are not going to give you, you know, you're not going to build wealth with a bank. And if we told all of America that, there'd be money being pulled out of banks left and right. It'd be like, yeah, forget that, man. I'm going to put it somewhere where it's going to grow.
What's the stat on your website? How many people, because you have a very large number of people that are, you say, on there financially illiterate.
Yeah, it's about, I mean, if you look at it on a global scale, 5 trillion. So, you know, basically 2/3 of the world is financially illiterate. So, and if you look at even America, in the United States, there are, I would say, if we pulled up basic concepts in our book, 90% of people cannot answer the basic statistics that come out of this book.
Give me a basic statistic
in
this book.
I'll give you a basic concept that most people should know that don't.
Okay, fire off.
Rule of 72.
Yeah.
You ever heard of it?
Yes.
Okay, you tell me what the rule of 72 is.
Well, this is your show.
Okay. Well, that's why I'm asking those. Could you actually verbalize what the rule of 72 is? Okay. Well, neither can almost anybody else. And that's the point. So rule of 72 is just basic math for understanding how compound interest works. So we take the number 72, divide it by an interest rate. That will equal the years it takes for your money to double.
Right.
Now, if we started thinking with that thought process, you know, because we borrow money all the time. We put our money in places where it's going to grow and they're going to give you an interest rate.
Yep.
So if we start thinking with the thought process of how does the rule of 72 apply to whatever I'm doing with my money? Okay, so if we looked at like bank accounts, and most people have no idea what the interest rate is in their bank account. They just know like, hey, my money is safe because it's there, and you know, I can at least not lose any money there. I'm like, you're losing money because inflation, right? So, but banks are going to give you 0.3%. So 72 divided by 0.3 is 240 years. So it takes 240 years for your money to double in a bank account offering you 0.3% interest, right? But then they're going to offer you a credit card at 24%. So 72 divided by 24 means your money's doubling against you every 3 years. So if you think about it like that, you get people who load up, you know, average family, you know, carries about $10,000 of credit card debt at 24%. Most of them don't have any money sitting in, you know, an emergency fund, right? So it's totally backwards, where it's like we're getting charged 24% to use somebody else's money. But then, you know, the money that we do have, we're going to earn 0.3%. It's just totally backwards.